Breaking news tonight, dangerous wildfires explode across the South. Dozens of homes destroyed, and now the National Guard being called in. The state of emergency in Georgia as fast-moving flames engulf homes and businesses. Mandatory evacuations ordered, school buses rushing kids out of an elementary school. Drivers trying to escape the flames and the urgent race to put out fires from the ground and in the air. Deadly chemical leak, 2 killed and dozens rushed to the hospital after a dangerous chemical reaction. First responders in hazmat suits. What went wrong? Growing uncertainty over U.S. and Iran and the peace talks as Iran seizes commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Can the president get Iran back to the negotiating table? Plus, new tonight, what's behind the sudden resignation of the U.S. Secretary of the Navy with the country still at war? Health Secretary RFK Jr. grilled on Capitol Hill what he said when he was asked if he's responsible for the nation's largest measles outbreak in decades. Mounting questions after 2 CIA officers were killed in a crash in Mexico after a counter-narcotics bust. Were those Americans operating there illegally? We'll show you the massive hidden drug lab in the woods. Bailout for Spirt Airlines, the deal in the works to rescue the discount carrier that could leave the federal government owning a majority of that airline. Prediction market Kalshi suspending 3 politicians for betting on their own races. Clinging to a cliff, the heart-stopping rescue to save tourists trapped on the rocks, including children, after high tide left them stranded. History for sale, the Titanic's wealthiest passengers' pocket watch hitting the auction block. How much would you pay for a piece of history? And there's good news tonight, the baby elephant making her big debut this Earth Day. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
And good evening. We are coming on the air tonight as huge wildfires tear through parts of the southeast tonight, and they're sparking a state of emergency in Georgia right now. The fires already burning thousands of acres across multiple states, destroying dozens of homes and forcing thousands to evacuate. In Georgia, take a look at this. Flames seen soaring into the sky as first responders try to get ahead of those flames there, and drivers there facing a wall of black smoke. Watch this, forced to turn around and go back the way they came. And one person returning to his property to find this, everything burned beyond recognition. In Florida, first responders taking to the skies to try and put out these fires, water-carrying helicopters and massive air tankers scrambling to those hot spots. All this as fire season is just getting started. We begin tonight with NBC's Aaron Gilchrist on the ground in the fire zone in Georgia.
Tonight, firefighters on the front lines urgently racing to put out several blazes across the southeast, from the ground to the air. In Georgia, the fast-moving Brantley County fire forcing evacuations. School buses rushing to leave an elementary school with blackened, smoky skies nearby.
All their stuff's gone.
Residents capturing devastating images of what's left of their homes. Cars completely charred to ash. Officials say more than 50 houses have been destroyed, an estimated 1,000 now at risk. Now we know that you've issued at least 2 mandatory evacuation orders. What's your message to people who may be hesitant to get out?
That's a great question, and I'll be honest with you. We cannot force these folks to leave even though we give a mandatory evacuation. It's a very serious situation where we have citizens that are in harm.
So thick you can't even see.
The smoke causing dangerous conditions on the roads, drivers turning around trying to escape the black plumes. Officials here in Nahana have closed off several roads to keep people miles away from the fire zone, but you look up at the sky and you can see it's filled with that smoky haze. Firefighters taking to the skies, dropping gallons of water to fight multiple fires in Florida and out west in Montana. Communities already fighting an uphill battle as the 2026 fire season gets underway.
All right, Aaron joins us live from southeast Georgia, right by what's being called the Brantley fire. Aaron, what challenges are crews facing when it comes to getting this fire under control?
Well, Tom, this fire exploded from about 700 acres to nearly 5,000 acres in less than a day. Officials tell me they think it's about 10% contained right now, but the wind is a major challenge here that could make that number go down if these fires continue to jump some of the fire lines that have been established already, Tom.
Okay, Aaron Gilchrist leading us off. Aaron, thank you. Tonight, a chemical leak and explosion has rocked a West Virginia community. The toxic emergency killing at least 2 people and more than 30 people needing medical attention. Investigative reporter Kimberly Kagi from our affiliate WSAZ is on the scene for us.
Tonight, a frightening scene at a West Virginia refinery after a chemical leak turned deadly. Rescue teams in hazmat suits, emergency vehicles racing to the scene. According to authorities, it happened this morning around 9:30 at the Ames Goldsmith Catalyst Refiners in Kanawha County. They say the plant was in the process of shutting down its operations and that workers were in the middle of cleaning and decontaminating. And that's when they say a chemical reaction occurred, creating hydrogen sulfide.
What's called M2000A and nitric acid were mixed in a pump area. They're decommissioning the tank. That's when the explosion occurred and the leak.
2 people died as a result. Another person is currently in critical condition, and meanwhile, 30 others were either taken to the hospital or received medical treatment.
When the materials got together, they reacted violently and exposed the workers. It was an open vessel, and it reacted and released almost instantaneously.
The leak forced a shelter-in-place order for several hours in the community, which is also home to West Virginia State University. And first responders arrived just within minutes of the leak.
Other employees drug out the affected workers using respirators. Many of them had respirators.
Now, in a statement, the plant's president confirms the 2 deaths were employees, adding the company's thoughts and prayers are with them and their families, and that they are working closely with local, state, and federal agencies.
Kimberly joins us now live at the scene. And Kimberly, we know there was a shelter in place at one point and some people were having trouble breathing.
Yeah, Tom, that's correct. Authorities tell us at least 7 of the people that were taken to the hospitals were actually first responders. And the good news tonight is all of those shelter-in-place orders have now been lifted, Tom.
Kimberly Kagi for us. Kimberly, thank you. Just hours after President Trump extended his ceasefire, Iran attacked and seized commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, releasing what it claims to be new video boarding those ships. All as we're also learning the Secretary of the Navy is now stepping down in the middle of this war. Here's Keir Simmons.
Tonight, the Iranian regime putting out video claiming to show its troops attacking and seizing commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The images, set to music, show them masked and armed. 2 ships were forced from the international waterway into Iranian waters, according to Iranian state media. All just hours after President Trump extended his ceasefire with Iran.
Iran has gone from having the most lethal navy in the Middle East to now acting like a bunch of pirates.
The president escalating pressure on the Iranian regime by also keeping a U.S. blockade on Iran's ports, costing the regime an estimated $435 million a day. The president saying in a new interview he feels no time pressure as he waits for Iran to return to talks.
They can't move oil in and out. They can't even pay their own people.
From Tehran tonight, NBC News reaching a former Iranian military commander with close links to the government who says there will be no talks unless the U.S. blockade is lifted. Do you think there will be negotiations again here in Islamabad?
It depends on the decision of the Trump. If they cancel the blockade of the Iran.
And he denies Iran's leadership is divided, telling me there are multiple ways to contact the new supreme leader who has not been seen publicly, including passing notes. It's been reported that it's hard to contact him, that communication is difficult. Is that true?
Yes.
President Trump's focus includes gaining an agreement that he argues is tougher than the nuclear deal President Obama got after 18 months negotiating with Iran, which placed limits on Iranian uranium enrichment for 15 years. The White House says Iran must agree to stop all enrichment.
Keir Simmons joins us now live from Pakistan. And Keir, you have some new reporting for our viewers about that shakeup at the Pentagon?
Tom, the Pentagon announcing that Secretary of the Navy John Phelan is departing the administration effective immediately. This is a civilian post appointed by the White House. Undersecretary Hung Kao will replace him. It's just the latest Pentagon shakeup. The Army Chief of Staff was fired early this month. Tom?
Keir Simmons with that update. Keir, thank you. Back here at home, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was grilled by senators on Capitol Hill today. Kennedy facing questions about his response to the measles outbreak and his record on vaccines. Here's Ann Thompson.
You want a grandstand?
Can you answer?
I can answer that question.
Yes,
I didn't cause the measles epidemic. It started before I came in.
In two Senate hearings today, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. deflected any blame for the nation's largest measles outbreak since the childhood disease was declared eliminated in 2000.
I had nothing to do with the measles outbreak here.
With vaccination rates declining, there have been more than 4,000 confirmed cases nationwide since 2025, more than 1,700 this year alone. 2 children in Texas died. A year ago, Kennedy, a vaccine skeptic, raising doubts about the shot's safety.
There are adverse events from the vaccine. It does cause deaths every year.
Today, the secretary endorsing the same vaccine.
Are you taking the position, as your CDC director has taken, that the measles vaccine is vital to keeping American children healthy in this country? Are you taking that position today? That has not been your position.
That's my position. We promote the measles vaccine.
The concern about vaccines bipartisan.
Are you taking steps now to ensure vaccine guidance is clear, evidence-based, and trustworthy, and what those steps would be?
Absolutely.
Republican Bill Cassidy, also a doctor and sometime Kennedy critic, focused on diseases that could come with World Cup fans.
You're pointing out that other countries have outbreaks, which increases the likelihood they will bring that here, and our immunization rates have fallen below 95%.
We are laser focused on that. We have booths and testing booths and institutions all over the games.
All right, with that, Ann Thompson joins us now live. And I know you're tracking news of a CDC study about the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yes, in fact, tonight, Tom, an HHS spokesperson confirms to NBC News that the acting head of the CDC stopped the publication of a study showing the COVID vaccine dramatically reduced the likelihood of emergency visits and hospitalizations. The director had issues with the study's design, which found those odds were cut in half by the vaccine, Tom.
All right, and we thank you for that. Now to the deaths of 2 American CIA officers killed in a car accident while returning from an operation against Mexican drug cartels. The president of Mexico tonight is vowing to investigate, but also asking questions. Here's Gabe Gutierrez.
This is what Mexican authorities say was a massive drug lab hidden in the woods. You can see rows of canisters, bags, and ovens. A rare look inside a secret meth lab in northern Mexico. But tonight, what happened after the law enforcement operation is raising questions about U.S. involvement in the crackdown. A source with knowledge of the matter tells NBC News 2 CIA officers, along with 2 Mexican officials, died following the operation this weekend in a car accident. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum is promising a thorough investigation, adding that while Mexico and the U.S. share intelligence, joint operations are not permitted under Mexican law. So far, she says, the information we have is that they were indeed working jointly. Let's put it that way. Late today, the White House responding.
I think the president always wants to see more cooperation when what we are doing is not only a benefit to the American people, but to her people as well, to crack down on these cartels.
The incident comes as President Trump has ramped up pressure on Mexico to target cartels, even previously suggesting the possibility of airstrikes within the country to stop them.
We have to eradicate them. We have to knock the hell out of them.
In response, Sheinbaum's government has extradited dozens of cartel suspects to the U.S. And earlier this year, helped by U.S. intelligence, Mexican authorities killed the notorious drug lord El Mencho. Tom?
Gabe, thank you. And sticking there at the White House, there's late word tonight that the Trump administration is working to finalize a bailout of Spirt Airlines. It could end with the government owning as much as 90% of that troubled discount carrier. Garrett Hake is tracking this one for us. And Garrett, this deal could be finalized soon?
Yeah, Tom, a source familiar with the talks described them as advanced, with an announcement from the president possible even as early as today. The deal under discussion would provide Spirit with some $500 million to strengthen the airline as it struggles to emerge from its second bankruptcy in 2 years and grapples with fuel costs that have spiked due to the war with Iran. A White House official says the deal is still being negotiated. President Trump said yesterday he'd like to see action to protect Spirit's employees, but late today, Senator Ted Cruz, who chairs the Commerce Committee, blasted the proposed bailout as a, quote, terrible idea. Spirit declined to comment on the negotiations today, but told us their operations continue as normal for guests who are booking travel. So that means if you have flights booked, nothing changes for now. Tom?
An important note there. All right, Garrett, we thank you for that. And this just in tonight, the prediction market company Kalshi has suspended 3 politicians for insider trading, essentially betting on themselves in their own elections. Brian Chung joins us now. And Brian, each politician has been fined and suspended. This is wild.
Yeah, Tom, this is questions swirl around these market platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket. Ezekiel Enriquez, Matt Klein, and Mark Moran allegedly bet roughly $100 each on their own candidacies for Congress in markets where thousands of dollars were trading. Moran telling NBC News he admits to insider trading, but says it was to call attention to manipulation in prediction markets. NBC News did not hear back from the other 2. The 3 are banned from the platform for 5 years, and the fines range from $539 to more than $6,200. In a statement, Kalshi said the bans demonstrate their commitment to policing all types of unfair or improper trading on their platform. Tom?
All right, Brian, we thank you for that. In 60 seconds, it's the heart-stopping rescue caught on camera. 7 tourists, including children, hanging on for dear life, clinging to the side of a cliff for hours. What happened next? We're back now with an intense rescue in Australia. 7 tourists, including children, stuck on a cliff while hiking. First responders having to haul them to safety one by one. Here's Liz Kreutz with that video.
This jaw-dropping footage shows the terrifying rescue. 7 tourists seen here huddling on the side of a steep cliff in Australia. Turbulent white-cap waves crashing below them. First responders say the group of 4 adults and 3 children were hiking around the edge of the water on the country's southeast coast, about 4 hours south of Sydney, when they became trapped by the high tide. They managed to climb up the rocky cliff to that thin ledge where they spent 3 nerve-wracking hours pressed together as rescue crews rushed to help. A helicopter arrived first, but the conditions were deemed too dangerous, forcing the hikers to instead be extracted one by one up the cliff. All 7, thankfully, making it out safely, but officials describing the ordeal as a dangerously close call, saying had the waves gone just a foot higher, the group likely could have been pulled into the sea. Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
And we're back in a moment. Guess how much this pocket watch cost from one of the Titanic's wealthiest passengers? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't cheap. That's next. We are back now with a major development in the battle over ICE agents wearing masks. Today, in a win for the Trump administration, a federal court striking down a California law saying federal agents can't wear masks on duty. It comes after California became the first state to ban most law enforcement agents from covering their faces. The Trump administration has pushed to allow federal agents to wear masks during immigration operations to protect their identities and prevent threats. Also tonight, a rare Titanic artifact auctioning for a historic price. This gold pocket watch made by Patek Philippe for one of the Titanic's wealthiest passengers, John Jacob Astor IV, sold to an Irish businessman for more than $1 million at a Chicago auction today. The watch was recovered from Astor's body days after the Titanic sunk in 1912. When we come back tonight, there is some good news about a small elephant drawing some big crowds and making history along the way. That's next. Finally, there's good news tonight. The National Zoo welcoming a new baby elephant, the first one born there in more than 2 decades. Our Ryan Nobles was there as she made her public debut today.
She's a tiny elephant, drawing big crowds. Lin Mai is the first elephant born at the National Zoo in nearly 25 years. Making her public debut in Washington, D.C. today. Her name means spirit blossom in Vietnamese. The young elephant already a hit with this young crowd of fans. What made you excited about it?
Because it was cute.
What do you like about elephants?
Because they have trunks and they can squirt water at people.
Yeah. She's just a few months old, but already weighs more than 500 pounds. Did you think she seemed really big or really small?
Really small.
So what if I told you she weighed 500 pounds? Would that surprise you?
Yes.
Yes. For now, she's still drinking out of a bottle. They don't come out of the womb just knowing how to use their trunk. They've got to be taught.
Correct. They're very similar to us in the fact that they need to learn how to be an elephant and how to master the skills to be successful at it.
Would you want to feed the baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would? Yeah. The National Zoo choosing Earth Day to highlight the importance of protecting elephants. With fewer than 50,000 Asian elephants left in the wild, they say every birth matters.
I'd like to spark within you. And you say, I want to see more of these in the world. What can I do to change things for the better?
Ryan Nobles, NBC News, Washington.
All right, that does it for us. That's Nightly News for this Wednesday. I'm Tom Llamas. Thanks so much for watching. Tonight, and always, we're here for you. Good night. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.